Stop me if you've heard this one before. I ain't got book smarts, but I got common sense and it's better. I won't claim here to have either of those two things, but what I will say is that there are pieces of ancient wisdom still out there waiting to be discovered by accident through experience, or to be found in books. It might sound painfully obvious to the point of being stupid for me to suggest this to you, but I want you to give serious consideration to the lowly wedge. Think about what it is, why it works, and how you can make a more efficient one. You're looking at a pair of felling wedges. They're made from maple. They're cured, and they're chainsaw cut such that they have grooves running this way for traction. Yes, I would use a steel wedge if the tree has a lean that I want to correct, or if it's just stubborn. But for the most part, this is what I would use to drop a tree. And this is what they look like after felling a tree, and this is what they look like after felling two trees. And for a straight cut into a tree, this serves its purpose pretty well. They take a little time to make, but they're cheap and they're sacrificial. You can run your chainsaw right through them if you need to. And in the heat of the moment, you just may. Okay, but what's the point here? I want you to consider this straight wedge, and I want you to consider its limitations. Notice that this wedge is made out of a round. I've recently discovered this, and you'll be a believer if you try it out. Change over to this for non-felling purposes. With these two wedges, I was able to split an entire maple tree. Something with a 14-inch diameter. The whole thing turned into firewood with just these two wedges. I say discover because it was new to me. It's, as I've said, probably not new in the world. It's ancient wisdom. Probably hundreds of thousands of years ago people had already learned this lesson, but I'm young comparatively speaking. So what we have is something with maybe a 4 or 5 inch diameter. It's about probably 15 inches long, and you cut it across like this. And what you get are two big fat wedges that have lots of uses. But specifically, the reason that a wedge like this is so good is because when you drive it into the cut, the plain side rests against the cut on one side, and on the other side, only the center part comes into contact with the other side of the cut. And so the stresses on the outsides of the wedge are lessened to the point that your wedge just tends to fail less over time. Right here where it gets the most force, right in the middle, that's exactly where the wedge is the strongest. In a nutshell, these last longer without breaking. When you're splitting, you should keep a hatchet somewhere close by for easy access. You can't get away with only using a splitting axe. You'll need your hatchet. At first, I tried only using an axe, but you'll quickly understand the reason that a hatchet is so useful. I'll start with the easiest case, just so I don't look like an imbecile on film. Right down the middle, I see a check here. That's a sign of a weakness. I could probably split straight through in one crack, but hopefully I won't. I look like an imbecile anyways. I missed. Well, I'm a couple inches up because my log is rotting out, and so I had to put another base, and until I can get one at the height that I like, which is probably here, I'm stuck. Aiming way high up, it's uncomfortable. But that's alright. For demonstration, look what I'm going to do. I have a deep check now, into which I insert my wedge. It doesn't have to be deep. This is an ongoing process. But it makes it easier to get my axe out, and it makes my target larger. Now I'll drive it right through the center if I'm good and not making a fool of myself again. There we go. Nice and easy. Second wedge. This one fatter. Right into its weak spot. This is why we have the hatchet. And one blow and it should be done. I can pull it apart, but I don't. I leave it there because its mass holds the rest of it in place so I can work. Same thing, lousy shot, but I can use my wedges to make it easier on me. It's a little unconventional here, but it doesn't matter. Just keeps the gap from closing again. Now I have another spot to attack. One big blow should finish it. Or two, or three. Again, it's attached, but I leave it there because its mass keeps it from flying off everywhere. And that keeps me from having to use a tire. Okay, so I got 3/4 of the way through before I have to bend over. That's pretty good. Those and those. This I can cut down. One's easy. And the rest is not too hard. It's just over half of an original round, so I'll just try to take it right down its middle. Close enough. There's a spot. Little wedge. Holding the axe, pounding the hatchet. Axe gets nice and loose. Cut is nice and big. I could use a wedge to finish it off if I want, or I can aim with the axe. It doesn't matter how you do it. The only thing that matters is that you reduce your energy expenditure. This game is all about energy. You don't want to struggle. You don't want to do anything that's hard. You don't want to do anything that hurts your body. Smallest amount of energy you can expend is the way to win the game. Why? Because there's a lot to do. Let's get your feet out of my way for splitting and try one that's a little more of a challenge. Again, I see a check there, but this one's a bit big for me to take all at once. So I'm going to instead take the minor diameter here and glance off a sheet right here. That's how we can open negotiations. I have my round to the front edge of my splitting log. And the reason that I do that, oh wait, you have some sawdust on your eye. As I was saying, if you look, there's a shelf here on the back, closest to where I'll be standing. And that's so that as I pass through, the axe hits the log instead of going through my camo crock. I could wear steel toes or something, but it's still not going to save me from a mat. Miss. I want to take a little less than that. Closer. But my check didn't go the whole way across the minor diameter. Close. This one should do it. Except I missed again. But now my check turned into a crack. So I can move forward with the wedge process. Listen to that. Again, not a struggle. I'm not working too hard. I hit where I wanted to before. To be honest, I'm not embarrassed by my inaccuracy. Because I have some pretty severe tendinitis. If I can hit the log at all, I count that as a success. Okay, now this glance turned out to be a pretty big piece of wood, so that's easy enough. Yeah, I pry with my handle a little bit. It doesn't hurt it. There's lots of wood here, so I can always make another handle. Okay, look at this. That lump says there was a growth there. Some branch that started but didn't. There's something in there, some weird grain. Part of doing this effectively is learning to read the log. I'm going to not try to split that. If I can get it down into the size that I want without messing with it, I'm happy. So instead I'm going to try to cut this part off. Get a nice little firewood wedge off of this side without even coming near that. A perfect blow. Trying to keep my face off of camera. Ooh, yeah, don't let it fall. Rule number 1 of using an axe is the axe never touches the ground. It should be rule number 2. It should be the axe never touches the skin, huh? Okay, rule number 1, axe should never touch your skin. Rule number 2, it should never touch the ground. Okay, what do you think? Vote now, axe or finish it with a wedge? Well, the axe is more heroic, but a wedge requires less energy. And you don't have misses. If you do, then your tendonitis has become bad enough that you should no longer be splitting wood. Look at that. Beautiful and simple. Now we just take the hairs out, which I didn't even have to do. On with the show. What's the next one? How do we read it? You can see it in there. See how it tried to grow around something? There's something that once came in laterally. If we pull this out, if we strip everything else away, we chisel off all the straight grain and leave the part that's round, we'll be left with something in there that's like a mass. Something about softball sized, and you can't split it. You can. There are ways, but it's very tricky, and like I said, we're trying to reduce our energy expenditure. Let's leave it for now, and we'll come back to the easy part. I say this again and again on both of my channels. Video after video I've said this. A great problem-solving methodology is one that proceeds by doing what you know you can do first without causing further harm. You just strip away the stuff that's easy and out of the way, and then usually you get a clearer picture of your problem. We tend to see the noise that surrounds a problem and focus on that rather than seeing the problem itself, you know, the relevant bits. Okay, so look, this is a good place to see what I'm talking about. The wedge doesn't break because, look, only the curve is tangent to a plane at only one point, ideally. And so this plane here on the wedge, it doesn't really even get forced. If you use a square wedge to put it into a curvy hole like this, it'll crack every time. I don't own any synthetic wedges. Sorry about your foot there. These are still holding up. They just go forever, I swear. They're cured now. They were probably cured when I started with that tree that I had mentioned. Okay, moving on. Let's pick off another piece. I'm thinking a wedge shape. Hopefully you can conceptualize this log from there. I know your view is different from mine. Where would you attempt this? If we try to half it right now, we're going to fail because we're going to hit that curvy grain in there. So let's try to pick off another piece. That's what I like about you. You always agree with me until we get to the comments. That and you're a good listener. You listen to more than 12% of what I post, unlike the general population. That's right. all these videos, I get about 12% of the content that I make actually gets watched. When you see the view number underneath, 12% of this content is absorbed by that number. It's kind of a shame when I make something that's actually good. This I do not consider one of those pieces of good content because it's just kind of extemporaneous. Spur of the moment. Okay, this round mass, it doesn't go the whole way through. I don't think it does. I imagine by visualizing that softball in the center, and it doesn't pass all the way into the heartwood. So at this point, I'm going to try to cleave the heartwood off because this distance is small enough that it's only about the same size as my bit, so I'll easily pass through that on one stroke. I should. Except I missed. I swear I'm better in real life. You know what it is? It's a confidence thing. You would think after all this time that I'd be perfectly comfortable with the camera, but I'm not. There is still some performance anxiety. It's hard not to stumble over your words, too. Perfect hit, but it felt way too hard. I think that mass is in there a little. So a better hit might be a ½ inch towards the interior. That's going to require concentration to hit that. Okay. I'll take a practice swing. Too much. Close though. But since it opened up nice, easily wedgeable. Well, from my view, look. It's a narrow wedge. It's still kind of tough. I might break my wedge if I continue. So, how about we put a second wedge in, thicker one. And it'll take some of that strain off of the first one. Now I can keep going, but I don't want to. Instead, I want to try to hit that and have it separate. Ooh, interesting. Strange grain in here. We have a second player. Sometimes they become extremely complicated. You'll have multiple grains with different, each with their own objective. They're all going different directions, seeking different goals. Okay, so this, I want to hit right there. Don't want to hit my shim, because it'll throw me off. I want to hit right there and sever this connection. Landing the bit of the axe right there, safely away from my feet. I don't know if I hit or not. You'll have to slow motion that and see. Since there's this, that suggests that I did not. But I was close. We'll try again. That's a tricky one. Plus your foot is in the way again. I don't want to hit the camera. It's messing up my swing. Okay, where do we go? We're there. We have it. Fat wedge down low. Control the log here by grabbing this. By the way, I do get questions still. Not really questions so much as comments. You'd be surprised how few questions there are in the comments. But a lot of comments saying this won't last. If you remember this video that I did for this epoxy rope, the first grip, the first grip broke right away. I broke the handle here. The grip was fine, but I broke this handle just through a fluke. I replaced the handle, which which by the way, had a bad grain, and the bad grain had everything to do with why it failed. So I replaced it with this, and since it has done 2 years. So that pile of firewood that I showed you over there, that's 1 year's worth, and I have that and 2 other repositories back in the woods that equal about half of that total, because that's 4 feet thick. And I've done all that splitting with this, and it's still going fine. There's one little chip here from multiple misses, but it didn't go anywhere. It doesn't bother my hand either, so I might fill it back up with epoxy just because this is still going. As we move into year 3, I don't want to prolong it. Okay, let's finish this. I would apologize about all my rambling, but some of you like that. You can go away if you don't. And besides, it was in chapter 1. A man should not apologize for his nature. I'm not going to beg you for subscriptions or positive feedback. I don't care. If you don't like this, you can kiss my ass. If you don't like that I can't hit the center of where I'm aiming, well then feel free to jump in that long line of people who have already given me useless criticism. I like helpful criticism. But it's hard. It's hard to tell the difference. We tend to read the things we read in the comments with inflection, where there shouldn't be any inflection. Okay, typically I hold the axe to control the log, and then use my right hand to operate the hatchet. You get strings like these, eliminate them. The only thing holding this together is strings. You sever enough of them and it separates. But yeah, there's something in there I can see. This will finish it though. There's something substantial in there. Huh. Let's go to them. Let's give it one more brute force hit, right? Let's put it out of my misery. And another. Oh, just look at that. Not something that I would have predicted. Look at that. It's a completely different piece of growth that pins them both together like a big nail. So you can't always predict them. Look. It's not evident here. And it wasn't evident here. Yeah, it is a little bit. Look. The curve of the growth was a clue, but I thought it was in response to this, which we can take a couple cracks at that one. I still might be able to find a line down here and around, so let's give it a try. Ideally right here, and it'll curve around that. We'll see. I got it. It wasn't all that curvy. And if this doesn't go all the way through, I might be able to split a little more off of this. But I can't because of that pin there. I can try though. What do you think? No, it felt hard as a rock. That I will leave. That's one of those 2-hour burner ones. It's nice and thick. I think I've bothered you with enough of my rambling. I hope something in here was of some use to you. Raz, you've been really patient. She frisbeed right into a bush and got a vicious puncture wound, so she's medicated right now. It was a pretty bad infection. She was 3 feet in the air and lands on a bush. She made the catch though. Didn't you, Raz? Catch! Come on, catch! Good girl, yeah. Dog's incredible. Hey Raz, you wanna go for a ride? Let's go for a ride. Good girl, lay down. Alright, let's go.